Hello and thanks for joining us for this week's MacDesk Floor Report. I'm Rebecca Darst from the Market Access Center, where we track the good, the bad, and the ugly market action every week from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Today is Thursday, April 25th, and the action so far today is upbeat, with the Dow up 84 points, that's just over 12 S&P points, with equities broadly trading on average level volumes. Taking a look at the action overnight, global markets traded in mixed territory. We're getting some of our first reads on global Q1 GDP, and overnight we had a release out of South Korea showing a rise of 0.9% quarter over quarter. That was the biggest gain in 2 years, beating analyst expectations as Korean exporters showed resilience in the face of a strong won currency and a weaker Japanese yen. Elsewhere, the Shanghai index closed fractionally lower, while the Nikkei in Tokyo closed fractionally higher. The European session brought a read on first quarter growth in the UK. This came in positive to the surprise of many. At 0.3%, consensus was looking for 0.1%, and some observers were even bracing for the possibility of a triple-dip recession for those beleaguered Brits. This has predictably brought some strength to the British pound, which is seeing its biggest pop against the US dollar in more than a month. Germany was the outperformer during today's European session, up for a fourth consecutive session led by strength in material stocks. Here in the U.S. pre-market, we had futures trading in positive territory amid a flood of fairly mixed earnings reports. Weekly jobless claims came in much better than expected, however. Last week's number was 355,000 new claims. Market consensus was looking for 351, and this week's number printed instead at 339. Continuing claims also came in lower. Bear in mind that we are trading in advance of the first read on first quarter GDP here in the U.S., which will be released tomorrow morning. Ordinarily, we would be looking at some of the positioning in weekly options for a sense of the market's expectation of that number. Activity in weekly contracts today has been affected to some extent by technical issues over at the CBOE that kept that exchange closed for much of the day, so we have no spot reading as yet on the VIX. SPY options, which trade on multiple exchanges, are showing some interest in April 26th weekly expiring options at the $158 put and the 157 strike call. Again, that GDP number tomorrow morning is likely to set the tone as we end the week. Now let's take a look at some of the action likely to move markets next week. On Monday, we've got a string of regional CPIs for the month of April from several German states, Saxony, Brandenburg, Hesse, and Bavaria to be specific. Italy will release March hourly wages and economic sentiment data, while there are some confidence readings from across the Eurozone for the month of April as well. U.S. data will be brisk to kick off the week, with March reads on personal income and spending, the PCE deflator, pending home sales, and an April measure of manufacturing activity in the Dallas area. Earnings season continues with reports from the Hartford Financial, Masco, Newmont Mining, and General Growth Properties. Tuesday brings several overnight releases from Japan. These include March jobless data, household spending, industrial production, housing starts, and retail and vehicle sales. European data on the docket include March producer prices and consumer spending from France, along with jobless data from Germany and across the Eurozone. Canada will release its February GDP read, March industrial and raw materials price data, and the U.S. will release its employment cost index for the first quarter, along with February S&P Case-Shiller home price data, April Chicago Purchasing Managers Index, and consumer confidence for April. Fully 67 companies are due to report that day, including Avon, Starwood Hotels, Tenet Healthcare, Pfizer, and Aetna. At midweek, we're looking at March labor cash earnings from Japan, along with reserve assets and vehicle sales numbers for the month of April. The UK will release April home prices and PMI manufacturing. While here in the US, we've got April MBA mortgage applications, ISM manufacturing and prices paid, April vehicle sales, March construction spending, and the first of several key reads on the job market, this being the April ADP employment change. We are looking at a prior reading of 158,000 new jobs for March. Consensus calls for an inline to slightly lower read at 155. And there's a full host of earnings from CBS, Merck, Time Warner, Iron Mountain, MasterCard, Marriott, and MetLife among some of the banner reports. On Thursday, we've got money supply data from Japan, along with several April PMI numbers from the Eurozone and a rate announcement from the ECB. The U.S. will release April Challenger job cuts data, May RBC consumer outlook, March trade balance, and some Q1 non-farm productivity and unit labor cost data, along with the usual Thursday weekly jobless claims. Earnings due out include MGM, Cardinal Health, Beazer Homes, AIG, and Kellogg. We'll end the week with April PMI from the UK and some economic growth forecasts from the European Commission, and the big kahuna of jobs numbers, that April change in non-farm payrolls. Last month's reading was nothing to write home about at 88,000 new payrolls. Survey calls for 155,000 this time around, along with April average hourly earnings and March factory orders. Earnings include Host Hotels, Newell Rubbermaid, and Moody's. We'll be watching all of the market action as it happens here on the floor. We're going on the road next week and taking a broadcast hiatus, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. So check us out for the next MacDesk Floor Report.